The sun rose quietly over a Mafe village, casting its golden light across the red earth, palm trees, and low, wide-roofed compounds. The cockcrow echoed through the compound of Ogwayfianin, a man known across the village for his integrity, wealth, and quiet dignity. A man who, just a few years ago, had everything: land, riches, respect, and, above all, a loving wife and son. Anin had married his childhood sweetheart, Neka, a soft-spoken, graceful woman whose presence was like rainfall on dry earth. Together, they had a son, Obinna, their pride, their laughter, the center of their world. The boy grew fast, always with a book in his hands or a question on his lips. He made his father proud. They would sit under the mango tree in the compound, the boy reading aloud from books while his mother listened and laughed with joy. When Neka became pregnant again, the whole village rejoiced. Ogwayfi Anin killed 2 goats in celebration, declaring, "Whether boy or girl, this child shall complete my joy." But joy never came, not the way he expected. The day of delivery was supposed to be another festive moment. But the cries that came from the inner room that evening were not of a newborn alone. It was the scream of life meeting death. Neka had bled too much. The baby came out, a boy, but the mother slipped away like the last ember of fire in a dying lamp. Something broke in Ogwayfi Anin that day. He stood outside the delivery room, eyes hollow, arms limp. The midwives brought out the baby, wrapped in a clean white cloth. "It's a boy," one said softly, her voice unsure, as if the gender of the child had become a curse. Ogwayfi Anin did not take the baby. He looked at the bundle, then looked away. "He is the reason she's gone," he muttered. "He took her from me. This child, this cursed child." From that day, the child, named Somi, short for Somadina, may I not be alone, was anything but embraced. His name mocked his reality. As years passed, the Anin compound became a place of cold division. Obinna, the first son, was loved deeply. He was chauffeured to school in his father's Toyota Camry, wore crisp uniforms, and was spoiled with all the things money could buy. His birthdays were village events. Every year, a goat would be killed, drinks flowed, laughter echoed. But Somi, he grew like a weed in a crack on a concrete floor. He walked to school every morning under the scorching sun, his shoes often torn, his books tattered, and his stomach frequently empty. He wore his brother's old uniforms, stitched and restitched by sympathetic neighbors. He was the boy no one clapped for, no one celebrated. "Papa," he asked one day at age 8, "why doesn't Obinna trek to school with me?" His father looked at him with cold eyes. "Because he didn't kill his mother." Somi stopped asking questions after that. Despite the rejection, Somi grew into a quiet, focused boy. He spent his evenings studying under the broken lamp outside the compound, refusing to let poverty choke his dreams. He cleaned his father's compound, fetched water, cooked for himself, and even helped Mama Chioma across the road with her firewood. He was raised by the streets, the pain, and his books. Obinna, on the other hand, became a storm. He grew rude, arrogant, and entitled. He failed his subjects repeatedly and started skipping classes. The friends he kept smelled of danger: young boys with braided hair, expensive phones, and fast money. They called themselves real guys. They talked about runs, deals, and yahoo yahoo. Their father did nothing. In fact, he encouraged it with silence, thinking Obinna was simply enjoying life as a privileged boy should. Then came university admissions. Somi got accepted into University of Nigeria, Nsukka, on scholarship, topping the local government's entrance examination list. Obinna failed his jam thrice, then paid to be smuggled into a polytechnic where he hardly attended classes. But Ogwayfi Anin still bought Obinna a car. "You are a man now," he said proudly, while Somi watched from a distance, trying not to cry. It was at Nsukka that Somi met Adora, a cheerful, bold, and brilliant girl from Enugu. She was the daughter of Chief Uzodimma, a billionaire businessman who owned filling stations, malls, and estates across the state. But Adora never acted like a rich kid. She met Somi when he helped her fix her laptop in the library. She had mistaken him for a tech officer. "You're not one of the IT guys?" she had asked. "No, I just like solving problems," Somi replied, smiling. That was the beginning. From library visits to long campus walks, they became inseparable. People called them Beauty and the Brain, though some whispered, Why she with that poor boy? Adora never cared. Back home, things grew worse. Obina had now dropped out. He was neck-deep in fraud, spending nights at clubs and days sleeping off hangovers. He had sold 2 of his father's farmlands already. One day, he beat up a girl who accused him of scamming her. The matter reached the police. Still, Ogwayfi Anine defended him. But pain was brewing. One Sunday morning, Ogwayfi Anine slumped in church during Thanksgiving. The entire village gathered. Doctors later confirmed it was a heart attack. And just like that, he was gone. At the reading of the will, Somi stood at the edge of the family lawyer's sitting room. When the old man read that all assets, land, buildings, vehicles, and business shares had been willed to Obina, everyone looked at Somi with pity. Not even his mother's wrapper, someone whispered. Somi nodded quietly. He expected it. But the days that followed were even harder. Obina turned into a beast. You are not my brother, he spat. You're just a mistake. You can't even stay here anymore. This house is mine. And so Somi packed his few belongings and moved into a tiny one-room zinc-roofed house behind the primary school. He started tutoring children for money. He stopped attending classes regularly. The struggle weighed him down like a wet wrapper. Then, one night, Adora called him. I've spoken to my father, she said, her voice soft and urgent. Somi, come with us abroad. We're leaving for Canada next month. You can start your life there. I don't want you to die in this suffering. Somi couldn't believe it. You do that for me. I will do anything to see you smile, she said. 3 weeks later, with a new passport, fresh clothes, and tears in his eyes, Somi boarded a flight with Adora and her family. For the first time, he saw a future. Obina didn't notice. He had sold 2 more properties, was neck-deep in fake wire transfers, and was drinking himself into madness. The day EFCC came for him, nobody was there. His friends had fled. His father's compound was overgrown with weeds. He cried as they dragged him out. There was no one left to save him. The air was cold. Cold in a way Somi had never known. Not the harmattan cold that dried his lips in a mafe. This was different. Thick, icy, biting. And it clawed through his skin as he stepped out of the airport into Toronto, Canada. But Somi smiled. The cold couldn't touch what was burning inside him. It was the heat of hope, of freedom, of a new beginning. The pain he carried from a mafe still followed him like a stubborn shadow, but for the first time, he felt it loosening its grip. Adora's father, Chief Uzadima, had spared no expense. He bought Somi a warm winter jacket even before they arrived. He ensured Somi's documents were in order, and within weeks, enrolled him in a college preparation program to help him adjust to the educational system abroad. Somi couldn't believe it. He had gone from sleeping on a bare mattress under a leaking zinc roof in a mafe to living in a warm, clean room in a townhouse filled with laughter, food, and light. Adora's parents treated him like a distant relative, gentle but guarded. Her mother, especially, watched him closely. Keep your eyes on your books, Somi, she'd say with a smile that didn't always reach her eyes. You are here now. Use it well. And he did. Somi buried himself in his studies. He read with hunger. Mathematics, computer science, artificial intelligence, subjects that once lived in the corners of his dreams were now his companions. While most youths his age chased social media trends and late-night parties, Somi chased assignments, scholarships, and certifications. By his second year, he had built an educational app to help African students study smarter. The app gained attention. A tech mentor in Canada introduced him to a startup incubator. That same year, Somi gave a TEDx youth talk titled, Forging Gold from Dust. His story made many cry. It made Adora proud. He's a miracle, she told her father one evening. But inside, Somi still bore scars. Some nights, he would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing his father's voice in his head, You killed your mother. He would bite his lip to hold back tears. He still had dreams of the compound in a mafe, of Obina sneering at him, of trekking to school with torn shoes while his brother sped past in a car. Healing came slowly, like harmattan rain, gentle and hesitant. Back in a mafe, Obina's life was unraveling. The family land, once full of cassava, yam, and palm trees, was now deserted. He had sold the farmland to a Chinese mining company. They dug deep, loud machines roaring through the quiet village, turning the soil red and broken. The family house that once echoed with Neka's laughter had become a ghost yard. Obina lived alone, surrounded by bottles, empty cartons, and clothes he hadn't washed in weeks. He drank heavily, smoked things he couldn't name, and scammed people daily. But his charm was fading. He had grown reckless. One day, he scammed the wrong person, a top politician's son. Within 72 hours, his phone lines were tracked. His bank accounts froze. His friends, once loyal, disappeared like mist. They came for him one evening. 3 black SUVs, tinted windows, men in black jackets with EFCC printed boldly on their chests. Obina. One of them barked, "You're under arrest for fraud, cybercrime, and financial impersonation." He laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when they slapped handcuffs on him and dragged him past the compound's gate, he screamed. "There's nobody to call," the EFCC man said coldly. And there wasn't. His father was dead. His mother was long buried. His brother? He hadn't asked about Somi in years. He didn't even know he was abroad. As they locked him in a cell that smelled of sweat and regret, Obina wept like a child. But no one came. Far away, Somi was soaring. Now a respected speaker at tech events. He was in his 3rd year at a top Canadian university. He had won the African Youth Innovation Award and was featured in a Nigerian diaspora magazine. But amidst all his rising success, Somi never forgot who he was. He sent money quietly to Mama Chioma, the old woman who used to sneak him food when he had nothing. He also sponsored 3 children from Amafe through school. One of them, a girl named Kamsi, wrote him letters filled with prayers and joy. Adora, now studying law, remained his closest friend, although her parents were beginning to suspect that friendship was no longer all there was. Her mother confronted her one evening. "Adora, do you love this boy?" She nodded quietly. "He may not be from our world," her mother said softly, "but I see the fire in his eyes. If he makes you happy, I won't stand in your way." Her father, ever the pragmatic man, said, "Let us see how he finishes his studies. Time will tell who he really is." And time did tell. By graduation, Somi had 2 tech patents and job offers from Google, Microsoft, and a Canadian AI lab. He chose the lab, wanting to stay closer to Adora. But deep in his heart, something called him back. "Adora," he said one evening under the lights of downtown Toronto, "I want to go back to Amafe. Just to visit. Not because I miss it, but because I need to." She took his hand. "Then let's go? Together." The wheels of the aircraft screeched against the Abuja runway. Somi inhaled deeply. Even though this wasn't yet Amafe, the smell of Nigeria, thick air, pepper soup, hot earth, diesel smoke, welcomed him like an old, worn memory. He felt his chest tighten. He had crossed oceans, walked prestigious halls, earned honors, and yet, stepping on Nigerian soil again made him feel like a little boy walking home in torn sandals. Adora reached for his hand. "You okay?" she asked softly, her brown eyes watching him with worry. "I don't know," he replied, his voice low. "It's like the air carries ghosts." From Abuja, they boarded a flight to Enugu. And from Enugu, they drove past Nsukka, past the old university campus, through dusty roads bordered by mango trees, until the signpost came into view. "Welcome to Amafe town." His hands trembled slightly. Amafe had changed, but only on the surface. The roads were still narrow, the village square still filled with laughter, palm wine vendors, and the occasional gossip under the shade of old trees. But houses had become more modern, some painted in flashy colors, others abandoned like old stories. And then they reached it, Ogwefi Anin's compound. Somi stepped out of the car. The iron gate was rusted, barely hanging. The compound walls were stained with years of rain and neglect. Bushes had overtaken the corners where cassava once grew. The mango tree, once green and proud, now looked thin, tired, as though mourning its lost days of shade and laughter. He walked slowly through the gate, past the cracked cement floor, past the broken clay pots that once held drinking water. "Nothing lives here anymore," he murmured. Adora stayed close, saying nothing. She knew this wasn't her moment. They found the main house. The wooden door creaked open. Dust flew into their faces. Inside, everything had turned to ruin. Empty bottles littered the floor. Obina's once shiny stereo set was smashed. A pile of filthy clothes sat in a corner. The air reeked of decay and forgotten dreams. Somi stood still. "This was my room," he said, pointing at the smallest room in the back. "I used to study here, on a stool. My candle used to burn out before midnight. but I'd stay awake just to make sure I didn't fall behind. Tears pricked Adaora's eyes. I wish I was there, she said. Somi turned to her, his voice trembling. No, if you had been there, you'd have suffered too. This pain was mine alone, and maybe I needed it. They left the compound quietly. They stayed in Mama Chioma's house, the kind widow who had once smuggled food to Somi when no one else cared. She was now frail, but her memory sharp. When she saw Somi, she let out a loud cry. Somi, is it you? My Pekin, Chinikimo, come and see what God has done, oh oh oh. She hugged him tightly, refusing to let go, whispering blessings into his ears. Your mother will be smiling in heaven, she said, eyes glistening. She didn't die for nothing. You have made her proud. Somi swallowed hard. Later that night, the news spread like wildfire. Somi, the forgotten son of Ogwefai had returned. With a foreign woman. Women whispered at the market. Men shook their heads in disbelief. Youths who remembered him trekking barefoot now stared in awe at the confident man in jeans and a smart polo shirt, speaking gently, greeting elders, and handing out gifts without pride. Even the village chief invited him for kola nut. You have brought pride to a maif, the Igui declared, chewing slowly. Your story should be taught in schools. You did not let bitterness ruin you. Somi bowed. Bitterness would have kept me poor, Igui. I chose to keep moving. But there was one more shadow yet to face. Obinna. After his arrest, Obinna had spent nearly 2 years in prison. His fraud charges were severe. But after heavy begging from distant relatives and an old friend of their late father, he was released early on health grounds. Now, he lived in a dilapidated room in the next village, pale, broken, a ghost of his former self. Most people avoided him. Some cursed him for selling their communal land to foreigners. Somi learned of his whereabouts from one of Mama Chioma's sons. He day for Imyagwo now, the boy said. No get house again. He just day survive with small food dem day pity give am. Somi nodded. And without telling Adora, he went. The meeting was painful. He found Obinna sitting under a mango tree, wearing a tattered singlet, legs stretched out, eyes distant. There was a deep scar across his forehead, and his right hand trembled slightly. At first, Obinna didn't recognize him. Who you day find? He asked without looking up. I'm looking for you, Somi replied gently. Obinna squinted, then stared, then gasped. Somi. Somi nodded. It's me. Silence hung like fog. Obinna laughed bitterly. So you finally made it, eh? The golden boy. Abroad and all. Somi sat beside him, not minding the dirt. I didn't come to mock you, Obinna. Then why are you here? To forgive me. His voice cracked. You should hate me. You should spit on me. I treated you like trash. I came because, Somi paused. I needed to see the boy who used to be my brother. Obinna's shoulders dropped. I don't deserve it, he said. I ruined everything Papa gave me. I sold all of it. I was angry. I didn't know how to carry love. Or pain. Somi looked at him. We were both in pain, Obinna. I just chose a different road. Obinna's eyes filled with tears. I miss Mama. I do too. Before he left, Somi handed Obinna an envelope. Inside was money, enough to rent a small room, buy food, and start over. Obinna refused. I can't take your pity, he said. It's not pity, Somi replied. It's a gift. From the brother you forgot you had. And with that, he walked away. The next morning, Somi stood at his mother's grave. A simple stone marked it. Neka Anine, forever gentle. Loving wife, mother of 2. He poured water gently around the soil, then knelt. I made it, Mama, he whispered. They hated me, but I rose. They forgot me, but I remembered you. And now, I forgive him. I forgive them all. Adora stood a few steps behind him, quiet, watching, knowing this was closure. As they walked away, the wind picked up slightly. It rustled the trees, lifted a little dust, and for the first time, Somi felt truly free. The plane soared over the Atlantic, cutting through the clouds like a silent prayer returning to heaven. Somi sat by the window, gazing out at the endless stretch of sky. The landscape of Nigeria, of a maif, of pain, of memory, was now behind him. But something had shifted. A wound that had festered for years had finally begun to heal. Beside him, Adora dozed off, her head gently resting on his shoulder. Even in sleep, she looked peaceful, like the home he never knew he needed. He smiled slightly and whispered, Thank you, Adora, for everything. Life resumed, but not as it was. The man who returned from Nigeria was not the same boy who had left with pain stitched into his soul. Somi now walked differently. He no longer carried shame like a second skin. His eyes held clarity. His heart, peace. He resumed work at the artificial intelligence lab. His name was gaining ground in tech spaces, especially as his educational app, Mentora, reached over 100,000 downloads across Africa. The Canadian media took notice. From rejected son to tech visionary, meet Somi Enin. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Chief Uzodimma called him into the study. "I've watched you, Somi," the older man said, sipping his wine. "You are not just smart, you are dependable. That is rare these days." Somi stood respectfully, unsure of what was coming next. "I have only one daughter. My pride, my headache." He smiled. "She says she loves you." Somi's heart skipped. "I am a traditional man," the chief continued. "But love has taught even me to bend. If you will make her happy, if you will honor her, then I have no objection." Somi's throat tightened. "Sir, I will spend my life making her happy." The chief chuckled. "Then start by buying her a better ring than that one I saw on Instagram." They both laughed. A year later, on a quiet spring afternoon, Somi and Adora stood under an arch of white and gold flowers in Niagara-on-the-Lake, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and a few relatives who had flown in from Nigeria. Somi wore a sharp cream-colored agbada, while Adora stunned in a white lace gown with intricate Nigerian embroidery. Her mother wiped tears throughout the ceremony. Her father, dignified and proud, gave a heartfelt toast. "To the boy who came with nothing but has given us everything," he said. "To my son Somi." Somi wept silently during the vows. In his mind, he saw his mother, Neka, smiling. Not with lips, but with the warmth only heaven can pour. He whispered inside, "This is for you, Mama." Far away, in the quiet corners of Amafe, news reached the village through Facebook pictures and WhatsApp statuses. Mama Chioma clapped her hands in joy. See my Somi OOO. Married a fine girl. A broad wedding. Even the village Agui, in a village meeting, said, "That boy brought honor to us. May our sons follow his steps." Obinna, living quietly in Imuagwo, saw the wedding photos on a borrowed phone. He stared long and hard. No envy, no anger, just a soft, quiet smile. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Live well, brother." Then, he tucked the image in his heart and returned to his small poultry business, his own quiet way of starting over. Years passed. Somi and Adora had 2 children, Chikamso and Neka, named after his late mother. Their home was filled with laughter, books, music, and food from both Nigeria and the West. Somi never forgot where he came from. He opened a tech center in Amafe, teaching village youths coding, design, and entrepreneurship. He built a modern library in memory of his mother, and every year, he visited Mama Chioma, bringing gifts and grandchildren. And sometimes, he sat alone in the backyard, watching his children play, whispering to the wind. "I was the son my father never wanted, but I became the man my mother would have dreamed of." He forgave his past not because it deserved it, but because he did. He rose, not in spite of the hatred, but because of it. And in that rise, he found a life full of grace, growth, and love.